More unsettled weather arrive, a bit more rain arriving into parts of Wales and the south west as well as Northern Ireland by mid-morning. That rain moves into the southeast on Monday and into Tuesday, and it'll stay dry and bright across Scotland. Bye-bye.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Akua, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Israeli hostages travelling by helicopter are said to have landed at the Schneider Children's Medical Centre in Israel for treatment. For those watching us on television, this is them arriving a short while ago. It's said they'll be reuniting with family members inside of the hospital. 13 Israeli hostages were released by Hamas today. The Israeli military says it's preparing for the next stage of the Gaza operation. These pictures show the hostages being transferred in Red Cross cars via the Rafah crossing. More aid is being allowed into Gaza, which is expected to continue over the coming days. There was also a further group of Thai hostages released by the terror group Hamas following separate mediation efforts by Egypt and Qatar. Those released today include 13 Israelis, some of whom are dual nationals, 10 Thai citizens and a Filipino national. Qatar's foreign ministry says 39 Palestinian women and children have also been released from Israeli prisons as part of the deal. A temporary pause in fighting came into force this morning, expected to last 4 days. Margaret Moses, Daniel Aloni, Amelia Aloni, Adina Moshe, Ohad Munda and Ruth Munda, just 6 of the Israeli hostages who've been released today. A full list of Israelis who've been freed has been released by the Prime Minister's office. They include 1 male and a range in age from 85 to as young as just 5. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said we're committed to the return of all of our hostages. The UK's Foreign Secretary Lord David Cameron also saying it's a huge relief to see hostages returned today. Elsewhere, there's been more disruption on the streets of Dublin this evening following the riots and violent scenes yesterday that saw 34 people arrested. A smaller number of people attempted to create unrest for a second night in a row. More arrests have been made. A clean-up was underway this morning in the city centre after cars were set alight and shops were looted. A number of police officers also injured. The violence was sparked after 3 children and a woman were stabbed close to a school in the city yesterday. A 5-year-old girl is said to be in a serious condition. Rishi Sunak's facing a backlash from senior members of his own party after new figures revealed migration is at an all-time high. Reports suggest MPs are demanding action to reduce the number of people coming legally to the UK. Net migration peaked at 745,000 last year, a record high. And the UK could be in for freezing conditions as temperatures as low as -5 are expected. The Met Office says the cold spell could also see snowfall next week. Saturday expected to be the coldest night of the season across the country with those sub-zero temperatures. And they could possibly reach -7 across northwestern England and in the south, and -4 in rural areas of Wales tomorrow morning. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle and joining me tonight are comedians Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Both well?
Yes, very good, thank you. It's my birthday this Sunday and I think it's cute how both of you are pretending not to know.
I didn't know, I'm afraid, Paul, but
Nobody knew.
Happy birthday for Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday for Sunday. I really care about you, Paul.
You're not going to ask me how old I am?
I don't. First of all, you look older than you.
I'm going to be 14 years older than your girlfriend.
OK, well, let's not make it personal. Anyway, let's start. But no, Lewis, we've got a job to do, a show to do. We're going to look at the front pages of Saturday's newspapers first. The Daily Mail is running with, we want to end the stealth tax. The Times, at last, freedom for some. That's some of the hostages being released in Gaza. The Guardian has, war is paused while 24 hostages are freed. The Telegraph has, comic relief chief quits over Gaza stance. We'll get to that in a moment. And the Daily Express, Dame Esther's joy over precious present of life. The Daily Star has Stockton. It's a Garden of Eden, apparently. Those were your front pages. So I think it's very interesting that the one story that's conspicuously absent on all of these front covers is the Dublin riots. And I would have expected that to feature in some way.
I would have expected to feature heavily, let alone in some way. And I think the reason why is because everybody is tiptoeing around this.
Yes.
It really doesn't fit the agenda at the moment, the agenda being positive towards immigration and multiculturalism.
Yeah.
And clearly this was somebody who was a foreign national, from all we know, I don't know from what nationality,
yeah.
but who has stabbed women and children.
We can see that front cover that doesn't feature the story we're talking about because it's just not there. And this is interesting, Lewis, because, of course, when it comes to the riots in Dublin, we are talking about, it was dismissed by one of the police officers as just a bunch of far-right thugs, which completely misrepresents what's going on.
Well, to call them far-right, I think what we need is there needs to be different language that's used.
Yes.
It's obvious. It's like what Paul says, the agenda is about having one happy little world where we're all getting along. He was Algerian, this guy.
Right.
And so probably in another time and place, he'd be called a terrorist. Well, I remember when people were called terrorists.
Well, we don't know. I suppose we don't know the motives. Things haven't been really decided on yet. So let's wait and see how that unfolds. It's just interesting that press chose not to run with it for tomorrow's papers. But the Times was running with what?
At last, freedom for some. And this is, of course, good news as a result of the 4-day ceasefire that's happening as we speak. So 24 hostages in total have been released now, 13 today, women and children. And in response, there have been 39 Palestinian women and youths who were detained in Israel that have been released also. Excuse me. I think the thing that's most fascinating about this is what's going to occur over the next few days. We're going to get to hear how they were treated, where they were held. I will say the pictures that I've seen so far, whilst they do look scared, as I would do, perhaps even relieved, they look well.
OK, well, that's something to be grateful for.
And I think that is a relief, to be honest.
Lewis, what do you make of this? I mean, this has put Israel in a very difficult situation because they are agreeing now to a ceasefire of 4 days, which, of course, will benefit Hamas greatly because it will allow them to monitor what the IDF are doing. It will allow them to recoup and reband and regroup. And you know, we do know that one of the Palestinian prisoners that was released in a previous deal, that time when they released 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in return for one IDF soldier, that one of those people was, in fact, the man who orchestrated the October 7th attacks. So, and the people they are releasing from from Israel are indeed prisoners, people who have committed violent crime. There is always a risk when it comes to this kind of thing, isn't there?
Well, I mean, it all sounds benign, you know, women and children that they're releasing. One was a young schoolgirl who was arrested on her way to school when she stopped to stab a police officer.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've seen a lot of that, women and children being released from Israeli prison. But no, they're criminals.
Yeah.
It's not comparable to the hostages that were taken by Hamas during that massacre.
The situation is very difficult for Israel because Israel has two focuses, two approaches to the war. One is they've got to make us, the world, feel good about helping Israel and supporting Israel, which I don't think it's done. I think it's failed on a PR grounds. But on the other hand, what the goal of Israel is to do, I believe, is to scare the hell out of their neighbors who are belligerent and hostile to them, to make them think twice about doing something like this or aiding the Palestinians.
Well, there's a lot of Palestinians who don't support Hamas and who think that Hamas are the worst thing for them. But they are kind of trapped at this point. I mean, Hamas, when they were elected many years ago, 2006, I think it was, they killed off the political opponents. They murdered members of Fatah. So this is a group that is a tyrannous group.
Absolutely. I mean, they are terrorists. Actually, the unforgottens at the moment are probably the vast majority of Palestinians in that country that would find all of this abhorrent. Now, they don't have a voice, so we don't know what they're going to say, and they'd be scared to use their voice if they did have it, I'm sure. However,
it's difficult because there's also a lot of people in Palestine, civilians, who support Hamas.
I disagree with you, Paul. And I think we don't know what's going on in that country. I feel for the Palestinians. They've been treated very badly over the years. They've been crammed into this. It's not just Israel that's mistreating them. They have no exit out to Egypt. It's not like they're being surrounded only by Israel. The Egyptians want no part of them. The reason they did this was because Saudi Arabia was striking a deal with Israel. The Jordanians don't support the...
Yeah, we almost had there was rumours they were on the brink of a peace deal.
Of a peace deal.
And, of course, that's not what Hamas wants.
No,
Hamas is a militant Islamist fundamentalist group that wants to wipe Jews off the face of the earth.
But
doesn't want peace.
But the fact is, and I want to say this as lovingly as possible, there's a lot of animus on, maybe going both sides. I wasn't trained to hate Muslims. And I don't have that feeling inside of me. But historically, there's been a lot of hatred. The truth is that Egyptians would rather strike a deal with Israel than they would help the...
Well, they're certainly not interested in helping
Gaza.
Gazans, are they? OK, we're going to move on to the Daily Mail. What are they leading with, Lewis?
They're leading with, we want to end the stealth tax. And this is a hard subject for me because my hope is someday to be in a tax bracket.
Yeah, you're getting there. You're getting there closely.
I'm getting there. I'm coming.
You want to get into a tax bracket.
Yeah, just a few more appearances on headliners, you'll be grand.
And there is, this is something called bracket creep, which the Tories were using to pay for COVID and all the things that they were doing. Basically, with inflation, it means people pay a higher percentage of their income.
Well, they had to get the money from somewhere. You know, during the pandemic, they gave subsidised households to such a degree. And so Sunak put this 4-year freeze on tax thresholds. What does he do now? What do you think?
Well, I think this was always deliberate. These tax thresholds were always going to stay in place for now. They needed to know how much these cuts were going to cost them. They will come at a cost. Doesn't matter how cynical you are about it, there will be some cost involved. They'll want to see that. And they'll also need to hold things back because they'll need to offer some gifts in the spring, assuming we don't have a general election before spring, which I don't assume.
This is kind of the problem, though. Whatever the government does at the moment is interpreted as being a sort of cynical ploy to try and win voters at the moment. There actually isn't anything they could do that wouldn't be interpreted.
No, and I don't think it's cynical to try and win voters. I think it's kind of inherent in what they're doing.
Yes.
They have to, in order to be in power, they have to win voters. I mean, I wrote a tweet this week saying this is good news for a lot of people. A lot of people that we care about, we're affected positively, particularly elderly people will be affected positively by this. And, you know, it doesn't matter what colour you support, that was a good budget. Now, the only way it becomes a bad budget is if you take the whole big picture into account and you start saying, what about this and how about that? Then, OK, you can argue till the cows come home. But in isolation, at this time, this is a good budget.
Well, you say that. The Mirror front cover yesterday was absolutely decrying the budget, so the autumn statement saying it was absolutely appalling.
Oh, well, that's the Mirror, and I think it's then, you know, they can't. What can they do? Can any Labour-supporting paper or any Labour-supporting commentator come out now and say that was good anyway? Of course they can't. They could have fixed and cured child cancer on Thursday, and they would have gone, well... Do we just want to do that for children?
That's almost certainly the case. OK, we're going to run with the Telegraph next. The front cover on Saturday's Telegraph. Paul, you've got this?
I do, indeed. It's an interesting story, this. It was one I was unaware of before I read the paper for the show. Comic relief chief quits over Gaza stance. So the chief or the chairman is a guy called Eric Salama. I'm taking from his... Is that a Jewish surname, or am I just being too... presumptuous?
I thought you checked on this. I didn't check on it.
So, no, I believe it is. I did a cursory check.
But it wouldn't matter anyway. The principle is that he wasn't consulted.
Yes, so sorry. I should have said that bit last. So, really, what's happened here is the Comic Relief, along with a number of other charities, have taken the stance of ceasefire now, which is a political stance. You know, charities are supposed to, particularly large national charities like Comic Relief, are supposed to be relatively neutral, whatever that really means. However, that's not really the story. The story is the charities managed to make a stance publicly without consulting A, the board, or B, the chair of the board, which is Eric Salama.
And not just that, a contentious stance.
A very contentious
stance. You would think that they would irrespective of how they feel about this, they probably should have been a bit more cautious, right?
Of course, and I think, you know, you're a charity that's supporting people. There's lots of different types of people you're supporting. I don't think in any way it's important for them to be involved in the debate.
No. Should he have been consulted, Lewis?
This shouldn't have happened. They should have stuck out of it. You know, just because they're a charity doesn't mean that they have to be involved in every single thing that every place, every...
But everyone does that now. I mean, corporations get involved in political things. Ben & Jerry's pontificating about UK immigration policy, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, you know, killing children with diabetes. So,
I don't think they're deliberately killing children.
No, I think that's a good... I think Ofcom would agree with you.
Paul is doing my act.
What am I doing? What am I doing? I've been reading Lewis's notes.
Actually, that is all we've got time for in this section. But coming up, we have a call to abolish the Home Office, more controversy at the BBC, and a police chief's serious error of judgment. See you in a couple of minutes.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Akua, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle. I'm still here with Paul Cox, Lewis Schaefer as well, who's brought some of his new merch along, a mug.
LewisSchaefer.co.uk, LewisSchaefer.co. You can find it on my...
and what's on the Lewis Schaefer mug? A picture of you, presumably?
A picture of me. These are fantastic. It says a picture of Lewis Schaefer. It says, the death of love, save lives, eat meat. And then it says, Lewis Schaefer, comedian, troublemaker.
Brilliant.
housewife.
And what's your OnlyFans details these days?
My OnlyFans details is 36, 34.
I dread to think what measurements you're talking about there. OK, we're going to start this section with this next story about the West Midlands Police. Who's got this?
I've got this. Sorry, just laughing at his merch. West Midlands Police has been moved into special measures over a string of failings. The force was also deemed not to be doing enough to keep vulnerable people safe, including domestic abuse victims, and failing to effectively manage the risk posed to the public by registered sex offenders and online child abusers.
That sounds pretty damning.
It is damning. I mean, I'm actually quite relieved that this is the way that the police are being measured. Right. Because I have seen them dancing, kneeling, helping young Muslim chaps down from a statue. But what I've not really seen is lots of talk about the effect of crime on victims.
Yes.
And we seem to have lost our way. The optics are terrible. I'm not suggesting for a moment that none of real policing is going on behind the scenes. But in many ways, whilst this is a bad story for what is the second largest police force in the UK being moved on to measures, at least they're being measured and at least they're being put onto a plan to improve.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is that when you get protesters calling for a jihad and throwing fireworks at the police and you've got videos of the police doing absolutely nothing about it, those videos go viral. A video of a policeman solving a crime or helping someone in a difficult situation, that's not going to go viral. We're not going to hear about it.
Yeah,
Are the police demonised because of the poor behaviour of a few?
It depends who's doing the demonising. I mean, I don't know why Paul believes this story.
Well, because it's in the Telegraph.
It's in the Telegraph, but that doesn't mean why. First of all, I mean, it is a real story, but why do you believe His Majesty's Inspector of the Constabulary and Fire Rescue?
Well, that is their job, isn't it, Lewis, to investigate the police, not investigate, but to monitor the police.
But the truth is, the police lie, and they tell the truth, and this is the big police. So which side do you believe? You believe in the local police? And why do you believe? And, you know...
Lewis, I have no idea what you're saying. The police lie and tell the truth.
They do.
And
so
what
you have to... I know nothing about... And this is the thing with you, Paul, and me. I know nothing. I don't know. I can tell you whether the police and the Met Police are okay, but we don't know if this gave no examples of the kind of thing.
I mean, just for clarity, this is not me endorsing either of these things. It's me reading the story and then telling the public.
It is you. It is you. You're saying the West Midland Police should be put to task, Paul, when we can't be sure that's
so
the
I
case.
think that's a good point.
It's not a great point.
But
I mean, the problem with Lewis is just casting aspersions about the veracity of the story, which he does with every story.
Yes.
Ultimately, that's not helpful.
It is helpful because the people who are watching
Well, I could say that about anything. I could say that you're not a real comedian if I wanted.
He's a housewife.
You know? I mean, that doesn't get us anywhere, Lewis.
It does get us somewhere.
You have to buy into the premise of the show, which is us talking about the stories in the newspaper.
I'm
not just saying, oh, it's probably not true, it's all about the death of love.
Andrew, you hired me and you said to me, I want you to undercut the premise of the show.
I cannot believe that for a minute.
And now you're getting all angry at me. The people are not going to like you when you don't play your role in this.
I'm happy with not being liked. Just because you gave me this tie, you think you can get away with anything.
Oh, yes, a good point.
He gave me this tie on the show the other day, which looks like a kickback.
I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything.
Ridiculous. I'm moving on. Right, so next is The Times. Demand for security guards has soared among high street retailers to combat a £1 billion shoplifting epidemic. Lewis used to be a shoplifter. What's...
You know what? I never was. I wasn't one of those shoplifters. I always thought I was going to get caught, and I'm the kind of guy who would get caught.
So you were only not a shoplifter out of fear?
Out of total fear.
I'm not a shoplifter out of morality. Why don't you try that for a change?
Because, you know, look what it's gotten you. Lewis Schaefer's beloved, and you are a lovely guy, and people are turning on you.
Third person again.
The point of this story is, this is surge in demand for MIDI. Actually, I'm not going to say the name of the company, security, after...
It's written on the screen, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter.
Maybe the Times got paid off by MIDI.
No, they didn't. Look, there is a genuine problem with shoplifting in the country.
There is.
It means people are paying more for their products because everyone puts the
why does the
prices
story
up.
have to have MIDI on the title? It could have come from a police agency, which is a trusted police agency. The fact is that people are shoplifting. There's a sense of lawlessness in the country.
Yes.
And what this is one great big public relations ad for this company.
Well, be that as it may, Paul, there is a problem with shoplifting. I mean, the Co-op have said that they've had 300,000 incidents of shoplifting, abuse and violence just this year. And in fact, the chairwoman of John Lewis has said that people are being handed a licence to shoplift. Is that right? I mean, is she implying that the police just don't do enough to combat this?
Well, I think she's absolutely right. And I think the police themselves, I mean, I don't know if I'm just buying into some sort of rhetoric that's out there on Twitter or whatever I'm reading at the time, but it does feel like the deterrent for shoplifting has been removed. We even hear, like this country or the US, that under a certain limit, people won't be arrested.
Yes.
$300 or £200 or whatever it might be.
In America, New York, it's $1,000.
Which is incredible, isn't it? I mean, you can get a lot for $1,000. Yeah. You need a whole trolley load and you still won't get in trouble.
You can go in there, do a supermarket sweep, go out with $999 worth of stuff, and the police won't touch you.
And I think, whilst this is a slight humble brag from the CEO of this company, MIDI, who are doing very well out of it. They're doing very well out of it because we just don't have the numbers to police this stuff. It's not the police don't want to, and I don't normally find myself in this position of defending the police twice in a row. However, what could they do?
Is it a societal problem? Have we failed to instil decent morality? It wouldn't occur to me to shoplift because I was raised well. Lewis only doesn't do it because he's scared of getting caught. But do you think there is an issue with morality and that actually we just need to be recultivating that sense of societal responsibility?
That's what, you're a Christian. I don't think it's morality. I think that a few shoplifters should be brought in the back and killed.
Right, so you think public executions of shoplifters is the way as a deterrent?
Do you know what? Yeah, that's what's a deterrent. I mean,
I think that's very Elizabethan of you.
Yes.
I don't think that's a good idea.
And in Elizabethan times, there was very little crime.
Are you joking?
No, there was very little crime.
That's absolutely, factually, 100% wrong.
Do you know something?
He does. He does. I tell
do.
you what,
I know a
I'm
bit
going
about
to
that.
say he does.
London was pretty lawless at the time. Anyway, we're going to move on now to the Daily Mail. The BBC has been engulfed in another anti-Semitism row. Paul, what's this one?
This is another... Honestly, fury as BBC journalists are banned from attending anti-Semitism march, despite many colleagues going on pro-Palestinian rallies. So insiders have said staff were told that the march would not fall under a description of allowed events that are commemorative or celebratory.
So is that the rule then? So they can't... BBC staff can't go on any marches that are commemorative or celebratory, but they can go on pro-Palestine marches?
So a lot of this is anecdotal, so it's unclear whether they were told...
That's not a policy then?
No. So the policy's always been in place, according to this article.
Right.
However, it's not in this article whether... And we do know that BBC people went to pro-Palestinian marches.
Yes.
Although anecdotal, it's pretty much...
But they might have been breaking the law... Not the law,
They could have been told this.
Doing,
So it would be unfair for me to say at this point, no, they were told it and broke the law. However... The fact that they're coming down on them now just seems ridiculous. This is another clanger from the BBC to me. Absolute clanger.
Well, but if they have a blanket rule that BBC staff can't go on protests that have any kind of political element to them, you know, is that fair to then attack them in this way? What do you think, Lewis?
It is fair because I don't think... Because something was not... done about the pro-Palestinian demonstrators.
Right.
They weren't questioned.
So if they turned a blind eye to that, they should turn a blind eye to this.
But the truth is, here's what the problem is. The problem is, this is the state media. This is owned by supposedly the people. Our tax dollars goes to pay for this. The British people's tax dollars go to pay for this. If this was a private company, they could do whatever they want to do. But it's not a private company.
It's not.
It's the money is taken by theft. It's forced. It's by a power of the gun, the law. You have to pay it. If you don't pay it, we're going to put you in jail. And so the BBC, there's no place for the BBC in today's modern
Well, this was
world.
just an opportunity for you to rant about the BBC, but but in terms of the story, Paul, I mean, look, it would have been quite a good thing maybe for the BBC strategically, given the repeated accusations of their pro-Palestinian bias, to actually say, OK, an anti-Semitism march, that's a good thing. Let's be seen to be there, right?
Exactly. And there was an opportunity here. Now, there are, of course, rules, and we can park that just for the purpose of the discussion and the debate. It's an own goal again.
Yeah.
It just seems ridiculous. Just say we support protesting, we support march, we support free speech, and therefore, if our people feel within themselves they need to do this, they should be free to do so.
Lewis, you do realise you've scuppered your chance of a job at the BBC. If ever it happens.
Do you know what? I've spent 23 years waiting for them.
Yeah, so they're probably not coming now, are they? Particularly if they watch this show, which I'm sure they don't. Let's move on to the Telegraph now. Richard Tice is saying the Home Office is not fit for purpose. Lewis, any thoughts on that?
I love this. I love this guy. Abolish the Home Office over migration failings. Say Richard Tice. Richard Tice is the reform leader. He works right here, and he's the best-looking presenter that we have.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry.
That's not what you were saying to me before.
When you gave him the tie.
Yeah. I have to say that. I got to keep my job. I'm sorry. I'm just hoping
you just flatter everyone to get what you want.
No, I don't even know the guy. But I don't know the guy, Andrew. But the truth is, what he's saying is that they've let in 745,000 immigrants last year, and this year is probably going to be more. And so it's not fit for purpose, so they should close. I love it.
Actually, you know, what he's saying is we need a new department. We need a Department of Immigration. He's got a point. You remember we had this story the other day about the whistleblower at the Home Office, who's basically saying whatever the government decide, the staff of the Home Office, because they're so pro-immigration, will just do their best to stymie and make sure that stuff is not in fact implemented. Now, Richard Tice is saying we need a Department of Immigration which should be staffed by people who believe in the cause of sovereign independence. I actually don't think that matters. I think you just need staff that will do their job. I don't care what they believe.
Well, exactly, because you're not going to be able... I mean, the process of trying to choose those type of people is pretty problematic anyway.
Well, yeah.
However, like you say, you know, they've got a job to do. If you've ever been a civil servant, you know that you've just got to pull the...
And you have been a civil servant.
I have. And you've got to pull the party line, and I mean, at the end of the day, right, what's happening here is by their own measure of success, the Home Office are doing brilliantly. For the last 25 years, since Tony Blair, the policy has really been behind the scenes and sometimes up front to let as many people into this country as possible to boost our economy.
Yep.
And it has failed.
So maybe they do need to abolish the Home Office and get something in its place.
Or change its remit.
Right. OK, well, that's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got fake AI images, the unattainable American dream, and the official anthem for Labour. Stay tuned.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Akua, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. We're going to start this section with The Sun. Fake AI. This is something we've covered a few times. Who's got this, Lewis?
I guess I do. How fake AI images and Hamas propaganda are indoctrinating a generation as they spread on TikTok and X. And this is about dirty tricks and bots and TikTok and it's about the, like I say, it's about this kind of, there's 2 wars going on. There's the war for the hearts and minds of the world,
yes,
which Israel is losing because people are believing this stuff and they're showing.
But it wouldn't matter anyway, because what's really interesting about this stuff, they can create these fake AI images to pretend that things are happening in the war that are not happening. But even when things are seen quite blatantly, like for instance, the image, the CCTV from the hospital, where you saw hostages being dragged through, injured, with guys with Kalashnikovs and even, I think, a kind of a meat cleaver or something. And then you had journalists sort of saying, oh, well, there's nothing to see there. They're just taking them for treatment. So as if, I mean, this is utterly ridiculous.
It was like a sketch from the Far Show. It was great. I mean, the thing about AI is terrifying. You and I agree on that. I start to feel older when I see stuff like this, because I think we need to hark back to a time when we thought for ourselves. I know it's very 1990s of me, but there was a time pre-social media when you would read a few things, you'd have access to limited amount of information, and then you'd make your own mind up based on...
you can't be there anymore.
The trouble is we rely entirely on social media now.
Yeah, but we shouldn't. Like, we have to be a bit more sceptical about this stuff.
I agree.
I think they're going to show a couple of images of the AI-generated images.
Oh, my
it's
goodness,
absolutely horrible.
harrowing.
And, you know, and the thing is about this stuff is people react to it. And even when things are ultimately proven to be wrong, proven to be false, people then say the damage has been done.
Yeah, and it's representative of what's, you know, some sort of lived reality.
He's got the 6 fingers on his hand.
Yeah, that's not it's not real.
Can I put a positive spin on it? Because otherwise I'm not going to be able to go to sleep, and maybe the people aren't going to be able to go to sleep. Is the more they spread images of horror that's being done in Gaza, the more other countries are saying, maybe we don't want to mess with Israel and the Jews as much as we used to.
The problem with it is, Lewis, is that all war has horrific images, right? All war is absolutely horrible. And the difference today is that a lot of it is captured on smartphones, etc.
But that's not the point that I'm making.
No, I'm moving you away to a better point. I think the better point that I was making was actually to do with the fact that, you know, this was always going to be inevitable, and it can always be, images of this kind can always be used to paint the other side as evil or whatever it might be.
But remember that Israel has 2 audiences. They have us who are giving money to them and supporting Israel. And then
they have to win a PR battle as well as a war.
Well, you know what? I think what they're thinking is, you know what? It's like Netanyahu said, we live in a tough neighborhood. And they're trying to show the people. I'm not saying this is the right thing. It's not the right thing in my mind, but they're trying to show their neighbors do not mess with us.
Well, what do you think?
I think there's a sub-story to this as well, because they mentioned TikTok a lot. They also mentioned X, Twitter.
Yes.
But TikTok gets mentioned a lot, and the reason it does is because it's Chinese-owned, and there is this theory, I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy at all, there's a theory that they are propagating this stuff because they lean towards the Palestinian argument and they want to undermine America.
Well, it could be, and certainly there's been a lot of stupid comments by young TikTok users, but nothing new there, really. We're going to move on now to The Guardian. This is lots of lovey getting involved in the climate debate again.
Oh, my goodness. Actors and academics criticise UK over climate madness and limits on protests. Now, this is Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry, Ben O'Cry, having joined the former Archbishop Canterbury, Rowan Williams, and leading climate scientists to highlight what they describe as a collective act of madness that is driving the destruction of
exactly?
Well, they want the crux of the story, actually, is that in the most controversial recent cases, 2 Just Stop Oil activists, one called Morgan and one called Marcus, were given jail terms of 3 and 2 years, respectively.
Was that for breaking the law?
Yes, it was for breaking the law, Andrew.
Yeah.
It's for blocking a motorway. So this is people... This isn't because... This has got nothing to do with their cause.
No.
I could have the most valid of cause, but if I start taking my clothes off now and running around naked in the studio, there are going to be repercussions.
I think you should do it to demonstrate.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Perhaps I should. I mean, one thing I would...
but if they break the law, you know, they're taking hammers to works of art. They're smashing things up. They're preventing people from getting to hospital, which can cause fatality. If you break the law, then you go to prison. I'm sorry. But peaceful protest, I mean, look, I would support anyone's right to peaceful protest, even if I hated the cause. But the criminality is criminality, right?
I couldn't agree more. There is I think actors and authors and scientists is the answer to the question, who have we learned to ignore the most in the last 3 years?
Interesting.
Because, you know, I'm kind of fed up now. I mean, I've always loved Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry is someone I've always really admired. But in recent years, he's become part of this blob for me that is just continually telling people like myself and anyone else who happens to have a different view of this argument that we might be stupid in some way. And what we're preventing is good people like him and others from saving the earth.
What do you think about this, Lewis? I mean, on the other hand, you know, peaceful protest is a key factor, and I've certainly been very critical of the Tory government trying to push through or clamping down on peaceful protest in what I see as being quite a sort of authoritarian move. So we do have to strike a balance, don't we? Right to peaceful protest, but not a right to criminality.
Yeah, you know what? This is like a no-brainer to me, because it's just a sense of lawlessness.
Do you think that celebrities should be writing these open letters, or do you get a bit sick of it
I
as well?
think they should be writing open letters, and we can choose not to see their films if we don't want to. Even though I have personally worked with Stephen Fry.
Yes.
Lovely guy. Worked with Emma Thompson on Cruella. She was amazing.
You've worked with them all.
I've worked with them all, because I'm a celebrity.
You're like one of those old theatrical dames, you know, oh, darling, I knew Noel Coward, me and Noel. That's you. That's what you sound like.
They should be able, but at the same time, if you're going to break the law, you should be punished. Otherwise, there's no fun in it.
There we go. Lovely message there. Now, on to the Daily Mail. Lewis, do you still believe in the American dream? It's come true for you.
Yes.
Look at where you are right now, baby.
I am. I'm on TV. Was I on TV in America? These people don't know that I was nothing in America. Anyway,
you were nothing. You were less than nothing. Look at you now. You're a hero.
No, you know what?
Millions of people.
I could have been something in America. I could have been. I was on American TV, and then I just thought I met this girl. The next thing you know, I took as that Bruce Springsteen.
You always
said,
blame your ex-wife.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She did. I have to blame her. She lured me to this country.
What's the story, Lewis?
The story is not so thankful anymore. Only 36% of voters think the American dream is still attainable. As the voters in America, in damning indictment of the U.S. under Biden.
Well, no, but isn't the American dream the idea that anyone can achieve whatever they want so long as they work hard enough, which has never been true?
But still people believed in it, and it got you up in the morning, and it could be true. There were lots of success. There are people in this country, it doesn't work in this country because you can never become king.
Yeah, but does it work in America either? I mean, you've seen Death of a Salesman. You know about Willie Loman.
That isn't about that. That's about a guy who was a loser, and he was personally a loser. It wasn't about the death of the American dream.
No,
and
that was the way I interpreted it.
Exactly. That's why everybody does it. It wasn't about that. Screw Arthur Miller. It's the only play that I know. Anyway, you're Mr. No. You're naming plays. These people don't.
He also wrote
plays.
The Crucible, which I'm sure you'll agree was a very.
I did, and I read a very interesting treatise about the Crucible in a book.
And you know more than you're letting on. So tell
you had to get your own little book in there. The book that I bought,
great book.
It's a great book.
Thank you very much.
It's a great book. Anyway,
I'm not going to plug my stuff. I'm not Lewis Schaefer. Tell me about. Come on, Lewis. Do you think
I'll tell you the simplest thing that the people need to know.
Yeah.
America is the most optimistic country in the world. America believes in stuff like that. We think America is the greatest country in the world. We think it's unlimited opportunities. But then we go through periods where we think, no, it's the opposite of that. We think everything is horrible and everything is bad.
And at the moment, they're going through a pessimistic phase.
Yes, it is. We're a bipolar country.
And Paul, is that Biden's fault?
Partly, and I think it does coincide with democratic presidents.
Yes.
If you look throughout history after Nixon.
Well, people are more miserable under the Democrats.
The thing is, a democratic president is much more likely to be slightly anti-American, to see American on the back foot, and I think that's the product of that. I mean, if you're not going to have a dream, you're going to have a dream come true, Lewis. But at the end of the day, if Biden represents the dream, this is a man who can't negotiate stairs and wouldn't recognise himself in the mirror, then of course if you have years and years of that being represented as you and your dream, this is what you're going to end up with, a poll like this.
It's a nightmare, isn't it? All right, we're going to move on to the Telegraph now.
He's
this
right.
is Sir Keir Starmer. Now, he's chosen the EU's anthem as what he says is what? Labour's anthem.
He says it sums up the Labour Party. Sir Keir Starmer has chosen the European Union's official anthem as a song, as he believes it sums up the Labour Party perfectly. Beethoven's Ode to Joy, as we probably already know, was adopted by the EU as its official anthem and then became a favourite of our friends the Remainers. Now, of course he did. I think Sir Keir Starmer is a bit of a plank.
OK.
I'm not going to... He absolutely is a plank. I don't know where he stands. I don't know what he stands for. He's flopping around in the wind like an old sock. And my biggest fear for the future is not that we have a Labour government. My biggest fear for the future in Britain is that we reignite this disastrous rejoin Brexit type argument.
Well, he was the architect of the people's vote, the idea that Labour wanted to go back to the voters and say, oh, you got it wrong last time, which proved to be disastrous. So we know he's a big fan of the EU, but he has ruled out going back into it. And we should say, in his defence, he didn't choose the final movement of the Ode to Joy, of Beethoven's symphony because it was the EU anthem. He chose it because he likes it for other reasons.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the song has been around longer than any of the movements.
Right, it wasn't written... No. Beethoven wasn't commissioned to write it for the EU.
In the same way that Things Can Only Get Better by Dee Ream wasn't written for Tony Blair.
Actually, it was. That was the one exception to this rule.
But it's fascinating. I mean, I can't see us rejoining Europe anyway now. I mean, it's gone far right.
Lewis, any thoughts?
My thoughts is they could have picked a better song for
what would you have chosen?
Under My Thumb. Under My Rolling
that was like
Stones.
a wife sex.
Rolling My Thumb. Sympathy for the Devil. could have been a better song for Keir Starmer.
No, what about Pump Up the Jam?
Yeah,
which would have been
Corbyn's jam.
No, because the fact that they did, what song did they choose? Which is a song which is a pro-European song, and that's what Beethoven was all about. It was all about about Europe.
He says he didn't choose it for that reason. He said it was because, you know, you have the. He said it's got a sense of destiny. Hugely optimistic. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. The truth is, Team World, those people don't care about Britain.
There we go. So we're ending this part with another one of Lewis's catchphrases there. Yeah. But coming up in the final section, we discuss a major change in the Brit Awards, academics being forced to retire, and one of life's biggest mysteries: why did the chicken cross the road? See you in a moment.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers. We're going to start this section with The Telegraph and academics being forced to retire. Paul.
Yes, Nobel Prize winner leads Cambridge protest over academics being forced out in prime of their lives.
That's 67 they're forced to retire.
Yes, this is Didier Queloz, I don't know, but forgive me. A Nobel Prize winner is leading the Cambridge revolt over a rule that forces academics to retire at 67, despite being in the prime, it says, of their lives.
Well, I think they sort of are. I mean, the thing is, when we think of prime of our lives, we're not talking about their fecundity. We're not talking about their ability to reproduce or anything. We're talking about we're talking about academics, and they generally get smarter as they get older.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I mean, wisdom comes with age. We seem to have a bit of a problem with ageing people in the modern world for some reason.
Yeah.
They're either too costly or too slow or whatever they might be. But one thing they will offer us is a life experience and a wisdom. I wanted to make loads of jokes about people being 67, but...
Outrageous. Lewis, you look wonderful. Now, Lewis, what do you think about this? Because I knew an academic who was forced out at the age of 67, and he was sharper than anyone else I'd ever met. And I just felt it was a massive injustice. Surely, when it comes to an intellectual pursuit, these aren't people who are asking to sort of, you know, carry big, like, planks of wood around the place or hods of bricks.
Yeah.
We're talking about people whose entire profession is about thought. And, you know, Frank Commode was writing brilliant books on Shakespeare up to his 80s. So why are we getting rid of him?
I think because we need to make space for young people.
No, we don't.
I think that's probably the argument. One thing that does surprise me is there's no retirement age in the UK, is there?
What?
I mean, there's no retirement age in the UK. Why are they forcing people out at 67?
I think it probably is what Lewis was saying, was that they want new blood. You know?
What they want to do is they want to replace them with their DEI.
Yes, probably.
Things.
Probably.
Oh my God!
And they, you know, and the vaccine didn't kill enough of them.
Okay, what a lovely, lovely sentiment. Okay, we're going to go on to The Guardian now. 17th century noblewoman. What's this about?
So, this is conservators remove Kylie Jenner treatment from 17th century portraits.
What does that mean?
So what's happened here is the portraits of a lady called Diana Cecil, who is a relation of Lord Cecil of what's it?
Yeah,
it's escaping me now.
Lord Burleigh.
Yeah, there we are. And so according to English Heritage, a painting within the charity's collection, known as the Jacobean Beauty, has been found to have received a so-called Kylie Jenner treatment.
So they've restored what the painting originally was. We can have a look at it, I think.
Basically, I mean, it's a bit unfair on Kylie Jenner here. They've plumped the lips up, as you can see, a little bit, and they've lowered the hairline.
So you can see that actually, because on the right, which is the original portrait there, she's looking a bit, you know...
Well, a bit ordinary.
A bit ordinary, and then on the other side, she's a hot minx.
Absolute babe. I mean, it's very difficult for me to sit here and not just stare.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're obsessed with change, aren't we? Humans, I mean. The original was created. It was changed because in the fashion of beauty and the way people look at beauty was seen to be different. And we've looked at that now and gone, oh, we need to change it back.
Well, I think portraits are supposed to represent people as they were. I mean, Cromwell said he wants warts and all. That's where we get the phrase from, you know? So, Lewis, what did you think of the improvement to that painting? Is it offensive to women?
I think when something is done 200 years ago and on a painting that was from 400 years ago, you just leave it be. It's like I went to Leeds Castle, which is down nowhere near Leeds, and they had building built up, and that's these castles. The Buckingham Palace is a perfect example where they have building built upon building. You don't sit there saying we want to take away the
go back to the original.
Go back to the original.
To be fair, though, I think these changes were made in the 18th century or something like that. So maybe it's anyway. Look, we haven't got much time, so let's move on. This next story is from the Daily Star. Why did the chicken cross the road, Lewis?
Yeah, reasons why the chicken crossed the road revealed as AI claims bird would probably die on the M1. This is their thinking.
Okay.
And I think chatbot Bard, which is an AI intelligence, was done by Donald Trump. We were discussing why did the chicken cross the road on our TV show.
On the Dinosaur Hour Extras, yes, that's
Extras.
Right. We were, but this, I mean, they're talking here about how this is they finally solved the riddle. It's not a riddle, it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke, it's not a riddle.
It doesn't require a solution.
No, it doesn't. And IA should stay out. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Lewis,
you go.
You're in a full stream there. IA needs to stay out of
comedy.
Absolutely. We don't need answers to comedy.
No.
It needs to be nonsensical. There was no chicken. There was no road.
And moreover, I don't want to know why the chicken crossed the road. It's more interesting if we don't know his motives.
But that was our discussion.
Yes.
There has to be a chicken. That joke should be taken literally, that there is a chicken.
Well, we're not going to get into that now, Lewis.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he was being bullied by his father, because he was scaredy cat.
That's what the AI claims. Very quickly, we've got this final story now.
That was my father doing that.
This is the Daily Mail. BBC bosses under fire. What's this, Paul?
BBC Doctors explores furry culture. Now, Doctors, for those who don't know, is a daytime soap opera for elderly people and comedians. Daytime soap shows how a teenager who dresses up as a teddy bear is thrown out by his grandfather, who calls him perverted.
Yeah, but I watched the clip and I thought it was a satire, because they're taking all the tropes of the gay coming out experience and applying it to a bloke who wants to dress up as a bear.
Yeah.
And there he is. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then they go to a bar where all these people are sat around dressed up like that, and they're treating it like a big civil rights issue. The bloke in a bear costume, give me a break.
That's such a good point.
But then it was in quotation.
There they are.
Oh
That's the furry bar. Those people are not oppressed. No one's ever been oppressed for wanting to dress up as Bugs Bunny.
Because I thought it was a metaphor for homosexuality too. That's what I thought.
No, the furry was.
The show comes across as a anti-gay satire.
Yeah.
It comes across as just mocking gay people for having to come out, because it's the same as going to hang out with a bunch of people dressed as bears.
Well, do you know what it could be? Because they put quotation marks around furry culture. You wouldn't put that around gay culture.
Well, who knows?
Or
Anyway,
trans culture.
that is all we've got time for. The show is nearly over, but let's have another quick look at Saturday's front pages. So the Daily Mail is leading with, "We want an end to the stealth tax." The Times has, "At last, freedom for some." That's about the hostages. We don't have the images, I'm sorry, due to a technical issue, but I can tell you the headlines. The Guardian has, "War is paused while 24 hostages are freed." The Telegraph has, "A comic relief chief quits over Gaza stance." And the Daily Express, "Dame Esther's joy over precious present of life." And the Daily Star running with a story about Stockton. That's all we've got time for. But thanks ever so much to my wonderful guests, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Lewis, I apologise if I was a bit curt to you earlier, but you did deserve it. We're back at the same time tomorrow, when Lewis will return with Nicholas DeSanto and Steve N. Allen. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, please do stay tuned, because now it's time for breakfast.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified on playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most